Hi guys, welcome back to Ask by Muriel. I am Muriel and I am a registered nurse of a little over a year. Prior to, I was a licensed practical nurse for 18 years. You know what we do on this channel. I've say it in every intro, so I'm not gonna be redundant about it. But anywho, I had a subscriber who reached out to me, asked me, can I do a video about her, about transitioning from CNA to becoming an LPN. And so, I'm gonna give the people what they want. So that's what we're gonna talk about in this video. So just stay tuned. Okay guys, now I was an LPN for 18 years and it's been a long time since I did that transition, so I'm going to try to remember the pointers that you're going to need to guide you through this transition, because I also was a CNA before I became an LPN. Times were a little different then. That was like in the 90s. Oh no, I lied. I became a CNA in I think like 1997. But I became an LPN in 2001. I worked in the hospital for about a year, and the scope, I'm not gonna say the scope is different, but it's a little different working in the hospital than working in a long-term care. I worked in the hospital for about a year as an LPN, and then I went to a long-term care facility. So what I'm gonna try to encapsulate both of these different types of work environments into this video to kind of guide you through that transition from being a CNA to being an LPN. And I'm going to break this down into 3 to 4 differences. Okay, time management. I'm going to try to help you with your time managing. Delegation, that's a big thing, delegation in your duties. Okay, first we're going to start with time management. Now, if you're working an 8-hour shift or if you're working a 12-hour shift, you're going to have a list of things that you have to get done within that time frame. With nursing, the main things are medication administration and documentation. Those are the 2 big things in nursing, whether you're working in a hospital or working in a long-term care facility. Medication and documentation. And so you have to be able to know, okay, and in a hospital, you're probably going to have typically 6 to 7 patients. In a long-term care facility, you can possibly have anywhere from 20 to 35, maybe 40 patients. So a lot of time to pass that medication and document in a timely manner is going to be a big thing, because if you don't get a system about yourself on how to do these things, I know pharmacy allows for medication administration for an hour before and an hour after time, so you have a 2-hour window to pass medication for whatever time frame that is due. It's not as hard in a hospital to meet that time frame. It's a little tougher in the long-term care facility because you have more patients. So in the hospital, whatever system you're working with, it's going to pop up with your meds that are due at, say, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. or whatever. Typically, when you're coming in the hospital, you get report, from the offgoing nurse. You do like bedside shift report. You go to each bed or whatever. By the time you finish getting report and everything, 8 o'clock meds are already popping up. And if it's even a minute or 20 minutes after 8, 9 o'clock meds are popping up. Okay, you have to get these medications out. Along with getting the medications out as a brand new nurse, let me just say, as well as in long-term care facility, you got to get these medications out. Along with getting these medications out, you have to know these medications that you are given. And as a brand new nurse, you are not going to know what all these medications are. That's why I would say while you're training, that is the best time to get to know these medications, because you'll be with another nurse, and that nurse will probably, more than likely, I hope, she will know these medications she's given. But you, as the LPN, this is your time to learn these medications, because you may know what a beta blocker is, but do you know how it can adversely affect the body. You may know what an antiarrhythmic is, but do you know how it can adversely affect the body? You know what a diuretic is, but do you know how it can adversely affect the body? So this is the time for you to get to know these medications. Commonly in a hospital and in a long-term care facility, you're going to typically be given the same medications over and over and over and over, and it's going to get so common and redundant till, I promise you won't even have to look some of these medications up, because you're going to give amlodipine so much throughout the day. You're going to give metoprolol so much throughout the day. You're going to give Lasix so much throughout the day. You're going to give amiodarone so much throughout the day that you're going to become so familiar with this medication. You're going to know. You're going to give Novolog. You're going to give Lantus, Levemir, different diabetic drugs. You're going to become so familiar with this medication that you won't get to the point where you have to, like, once you look it up on Monday, you won't still be looking it up on Friday, because between Monday and Friday, you're probably going to be done gave it like 20 times. You know what I'm saying? So that's when it comes to knowing your patient. Okay, let's talk about like the medication, the digoxin. We know what the digoxin is used for, but do you know that digoxin, can adversely affect your heart rate? Okay, as far as it can lower your heart rate and your pulse, and it's best to, when you're giving digoxin, it's best to check an apical pulse, not a rate, because if a person normally runs bradycardic, which is a lower heart rate, and they're running a heart rate now of 52, and you give them digoxin, you can drop that person's heart rate to the 30s. Now you got a whole nother situation on your hands. So that's why I say get to know the medications under medication administration. Get to know the medications that you're giving. Know how it can adversely affect your patient, because that was the scariest thing for me. I didn't know these medications coming out of school. Like, you know a little about these medications, but you don't really know. There's so much medication out there. You don't really know these medications going out to school, and you can't just willy-nilly go, okay, this person is doing amlodipine, so let me go ahead and give it to them. Well, you just gave somebody a blood pressure medication, just because it's ordered, but you don't even know that this person's blood pressure is already 80/50. So now what you think you're going to do? You know what I'm saying? What you think is going to happen? Or say a labetalol, which is another blood pressure medication that lower their blood pressure, or clonidine, which is another one that can lower their blood pressure. You just gave this person a clonidine that got a blood pressure of 80/50 today. Now you got to call the doctor. You know what I'm saying? You got to monitor the patient or whatever, because if there isn't parameters on there, technically, the doctor should put parameters. If the patient is the type of patient who bottoms out, we say bottoming out when their blood pressure just drops extremely low. But now you got to keep checking this patient, because now you done gave this clonidine, and now you find out this patient had a blood pressure of 80/50, but you didn't check that before you get that clonidine, like the betalol or that hydrolizine. So now you got to constantly monitor this patient, make sure that they don't bottom out on you. So you got to know your medications. So yeah, that's under medication. That's the scariest thing for me with becoming an LPN. I didn't want to kill nobody. And you can kill somebody giving them, even if the medication is scheduled for them, you can kill them giving them certain medications. So that's where you get to know, like I said, know the medications, know how they can adversely affect the body. Lasix is another one. You got somebody who blood pressure is 100/58. Now you done gave them a Lasix. Now you done dropped them down to 80/40. You know what I'm saying? So certain things you got to know to look for with medications, because it's not always going to be on their medication administration sheet saying hold if systolic is below 110. It's not going to necessarily say that, but you being the nurse, just to look for those things yourself, to save yourself, because honey, lawsuits come left and right, and they'll consider you an incompetent nurse. Okay, now we're going to talk about delegation. You have to be able to delegate. That was another thing I encountered that I didn't like, because sometimes you're a nurse now. Okay, you know what CNA's duties are because you were a CNA prior. Now you're the nurse. Now you have to be able to delegate tasks to your CNAs. So you're telling your CNAs, okay, most of the time you're making the assignment sheet out, It's going to be conflicts with, oh, I don't want to work with this assignment. I don't want to work with this patient. I don't want to, you got to be able to be the mediator when it comes to situations like that. We all know from being CNAs, you have those CNAs they are the good CNAs, the best ones that you want to take with you wherever you go. You just want to work with them. Then you got them CNAs that, that if they can get through 8-hour shift doing 1 hour worth of work, their patient's hair standing up on top of their head. They got crumbs all down their shirt, in between their toes, got all kind of just all in between it because they ain't taking off the socks to bathe them patients, Then you got those CNAs, and them the ones, they can be older than you, and then you got to be that person to be able to delegate. Hey, I need you to go comb so-and-so hair. Hey, I need you to go clean his feet. Can you go and put, and CNAs will say, I've heard CNAs saying things like, it ain't my job to put lotion on you. How the hell is that not your job to put lotion on him? You know what I'm saying? Like, I done heard some crazy things. CNAs say. Yeah, so that delegation part, that's going to be something. And one thing a nurse told me, because I found myself, I was still filling in that CNA role as when I became an LPN. I was still going there and bathe patients, do full bed bath and stuff. Now I'm the nurse. Not to say I'm not supposed to do that, but I ain't even finished passing my medications. But I took 20 minutes out of my time to go do a full bed bath on this patient because I know I got this lazy ass CNA. I hate to say it, but and this CNA ain't gonna get it done right. So you got to be able to delegate and be able to talk to your CNAs and be like, hey, I need you to go bathe so-and-so in such and such room, or hey, I need you to put so-and-so on the toilet. Now mind you, I know CNAs get bagged up and I know they are working extremely short, but CNAs know, if they're experienced CNA, they know those little shortcuts they can take to make sure the care gets done. I know everything is not going to be able to be done perfect, but at least they have to put an effort into do the best that they can. And so you have to be able to delegate to CNAs. You got to do a lot of I always put, whenever I do resumes, I put conflict resolution on there as one of my skills, because you be resolving so many damn conflicts. Y'all, I'll be trying not to curse. I have to put conflict resolution on my resumes because I be resolving conflicts left and right, and it be silly stuff that you be like, why is this even an issue? This is something, this is part of your job. Why is this even an issue? Why do we have to even talk about this? But yeah, you got to do that with grown people, y'all. It be a headache, y'all. Sometimes I just throw my hand up and just shake my head and walk off, because some of the ridiculous things that you feel like, y'all grown, like why we even got to go through this. And when I have to have a little back and forth or whatever with a CNA, my first thing would be like, I don't feel like I should have to tell another grown woman what her job is, because that is the truth. They know, what your job is. So yeah, that's another thing. Delegation. You have to delegate something. Like you're not going to be able to do it all, because as a nurse, your job, your patients are your responsibility, but your main jobs are medication administration and documentation. Those are your job. Those are the things that if you don't get those things done and your shift has ended, you have to stay and finish those things before your shift is done. Like if your documentation is not done, and it's 7 p.m., you may possibly be there till 9 p.m. doing that documentation. And the reason you didn't get that documentation done is because you spent 3 out of your 12 hours doing ADLs. Another thing a nurse told me that stuck with me was, as a nurse, I can do the CNA's job, but the CNA can't do my job. And you have to always remember that when it comes to getting your work done in a timely manner. Remember that when you pull yourself off the cart or away from that computer to go do this bed bath or do this shower, that CNA cannot then take your cart and pass your medication for you. So always keep that in mind. Documentation. Y'all, documentation is so important to these facilities. This is documentation, and is the facility's bread and butter. This is how the facilities get paid. You have to accurately document what you're doing with this patient, what this patient's behavior was. You have to document these things, because say you have a patient, and I learned this kind of late in the game. Say you have a patient that every day the patient hollers and screams at night. The patient hollers and screams, and you done got so used to it that you don't even document it no more. And then you're putting on your documentation 0 behaviors, because you done got so used to them hollering and screaming every night that it's not even dawning on you that this is you know what I'm saying? This is behavior that should be documented. So you may have a psychiatrist or the doctor coming in, and they're not going to address this because you're not documenting it. So when they look at the paperwork, it's like, okay, well, y'all asking me for something for this patient, but ain't no documentation to say what's going on. You putting 0 behaviors on everything. You have a patient who's continent and incontinent. Make sure you chart incontinent, because say you're always charting continent on this patient, but this patient is having several incontinent moments throughout the day. Okay, the more work you do for a patient, the more the facility gets paid for that patient. And so you're putting this work in, changing a patient, doing incontinent care. They may be continent just in the daytime, but at night they're totally incontinent. But you're steady documenting continent, because that's what they came in the facility being. So now the facility is not going to get paid what they should. They're not going to get paid for the work that you're putting in, because you're saying this patient is continent when they have incontinent episodes, So you have to make sure your documentation. A patient fell, and you failed to document that this patient fell. Well, 2 weeks later, now this patient left arm is swelling. Everybody is wondering, why is this arm just swelling out the blue? So the next thing you know, you have an x-ray done. This patient got a whole fracture humerus, or a whole fracture radius, or was it ulna? Excuse me, or ulna, and you're like, damn, how this fracture happen? But this patient was just found on the floor a week or 2 ago, or 3 days ago. This patient was just found on the floor 3 days ago, but nobody documented. Now you got a fracture of unknown origin. That looks bad. That's a reportable to the state. So now the facility has to, go through that. So documentation, to me, I'm not gonna lie, these facilities, I feel like they value documentation more than they value the care of the resident. I'm not even gonna lie to you. That's the way I see it, but it's important that you document. So there it is. Those are 3 of the main things I feel that you have to get accustomed to when it's going from that transition from being a CNA to an LPN. It may sound like a lot. It may sound kind of scary, but once you get into it, it's okay. When you learn on any job, when you learn your job, you know your job, and don't just think everything is going to stay the same at all time, because I always say patients are different. So how diseases and disease processes affect their body may be a little different than the next patient, because you may have a patient who's a diabetic, and I come across this all the time. You have a patient who is a diabetic, and they have a blood sugar of 358. And you give them 6 to 8 units of insulin, depending on the sliding scale. Within 2 hours, they done dropped to 54. Then you have another patient whose blood sugar is 358, and you give them 6 to 8 units of insulin. In a couple hours, they just down to 299. So then that's where it comes into being aware of who your patients are, knowing your patients. Well, if you work with them enough, you'll get to know what to look for. You'll get to know what to notify the doctor of. So you have a patient who has a blood sugar constantly of 58 in the mornings, 58 in the mornings, 58 in the morning, 42 in the morning, 30 something in the morning, and you're sitting there. You go ahead and do, they're alert and oriented. So you give them juice, you give them apple juice, you give them something to eat, you give them something to drink. So, and then when you go back and recheck their blood sugar, they're up to 110. So they're good. But the thing is, the day before that patient just got 45 units of Lantus 11-mere, or they just got two 20 dose units of Novolin. Okay, and now their blood sugars are being low every morning. So if you would have just took the initiative to call the doctor and be like, hey, this, instead of, you know, going with the 110 is good, you call the doctor and be like, hey, this patient has had blood sugars of 54, 50, whatever for the past 3 days. I gave them apple juice and everything, and the blood sugar comes up, but this is the pattern with them of having this low blood sugar, and this patient is taking 45 units of Lantus or Levemir every day. And the doctor might say, oh, okay, well, let's decrease that to 35 units, or let's decrease that to 30 units. That might be just the thing. So that might be just the thing to do it, so that the next morning you check this patient, instead of this patient being 58, they're 85. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say it's, you kind of get to know your patients, and so you know what your job duties are. Like, that's why, and that's another thing where communication come in key, but I'm not going to speak too much on communication, because I might put that in another video on what to do when you're calling the doctor about a situation, because some of these doctors, you can call them, if you ain't got your stuff together, Lord, they're going to bite your head. Some of them bite your head off. I ain't intimidated by them doctors. I never was, because I was always that type of person, because if it's some information I didn't have, I either call them back and tell them, but it's best to always have your information on hand. So I'm going to do another video to tell you what information to have on hand when you call a doctor. But yeah, I hope this was a help, y'all. I start rambling, but I hope this helped you with your transition from being a CNA to an LPN. I hope you enjoy the journey. You are stepping into a great field, a rewarded field in more ways than one. So just enjoy the ride, and I hope this helped you out. I am Muriel. This is As Told by Muriel, and if you have any comments, questions, or anything, please leave them down below. If you can add, I know I have a lot of friends who watch these videos, and some of them are nurses. If y'all have any suggestions or anything to add, please leave it in a comment below, and please go and like this video. Subscribe to my channel if you feel that subscribe to my channel if you feel like I gave some information that is beneficial to you. Share my video, because like I tell people, even if you are not a nurse, I'm sure you know someone who is going into nursing. I'm sure you have a family member who is a nurse. My videos may be beneficial to them. And my goal out here is I want women to be financially secure. Not to say just nursing for the money, but this career is one of those careers where you can, become financially secure. You can financially secure your family. And so if this is the career you choose, I'm trying to help you along the way to learn how to navigate things in this field. Because I really didn't have anybody to navigate for me, because I didn't have any nurses in my family. The nurses that I met were the nurses I met on the job, and those were the ones, and we didn't have this YouTube and stuff, back then to help us along the way. Like we said, it was your coworkers explained it to you, or you was just out there trying to willy-nilly figure things out on your own. But anywho, I am Muriel, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.